Hi creative friends! Today I want to share with you some of my techniques I use in Photoshop to create digital collages. We'll be working with layers and blending modes, and I'll be using some tools like perspective warp, puppet warp, some flipping and transforming that will really give you a lot of creativity when you're working with images in Photoshop. So pull in some images and let's get ready to have some fun. So here we are in the Adobe Photoshop program. I've got the Essentials Workspace selected. Up in this corner you'll see there's one for photography, painting, graphics, and web. So it just dictates what panels are going to show up in your standard workspace. But you can change that at any time by going to the windows and selecting from this list of panels here. So we'll just grab those as we need them and just work with Essentials for now. I've already opened up some images. You can take a look at those. These are images mostly that I have made some adjustments to in Lightroom using my painting with light technique on this one, for example. And I used some filters and layers to kind of modify this image as well. That's the good thing is you can bring the images in with that already done, so you can work faster once you get into Photoshop. All right, so let's create a new file. File, new. Now there's a bunch of presets under Adobe. They've got, for example, mobile apps. You could go in there and say, hey, I want to do this one for the iPad Retina. And I do like that size, but this one is a vertical format and I really like a horizontal format. So I've saved a preset for myself that does it the opposite way. So there we go. Okay. We've got our document set up and it's good to go. And you can see up here that we are working in the RGB space. We're not working in CMYK. CMYK is what you use if you were going to output these to traditional press. RGB works great for continuous tone printing, like if you're going to send it off to Shutterfly or MPix or one of the photo print shops. RGB works great and also works great for screen. 16 is the bit depth. 16 gives you more colors. Sometimes you have to reduce it to 8 for some of your photo print houses. But on screen, I like to take full advantage of all the colors. So let's go ahead and bring in some of these images into this blank untitled document. So right now, when Adobe brings them in, they become a background layer by default. And you can either uncheck this layer lock right here, or you can go up to layer and new layer, background from layer, and there you go. You've got a layer that you can do things with, like we're going to drag it into the untitled. There we go. There we go. And you'll notice it came in at a different size. That's because the file was shot with a different resolution. So how do we shrink this down? Control minus. It allows me to zoom out. And you'll see when I press down, that control is a command key on the Mac. I'll see how big my underlying image is. So it's quite a bit bigger than my canvas size. And I can modify that. I can go to Edit, Transform, Scale. And now I've got this little box so I can adjust this image. I'm going to hold down the Shift key. That way it stays in proportions, the aspect ratios, so it doesn't get distorted. All right, so I'm liking that size. That kind of fits my canvas kind of well. So let's just accept that up at the top. If you wanted to cancel it, you would hit this button, but we were going to hit that checkbox. All right, let's go ahead and drag in another image. This purple one here looks great. Okay, let's go ahead and free it up by unlocking it and dragging it onto the untitled bin. So there it is. Now, notice it's still there, which means we can go back and drag another copy. We haven't done anything to this file, named this up here, nor do we want to, because we always want to be able to go back to our original file. So I'm just going to X that and let it go away because I've already got it dragged into my working Photoshop file, my PSD file right here. And this one happens to be a little bit smaller. So I'm going to go Edit, Transform, Scale, And this time, holding my shift key down, I'm going to scale this image up. Great. Now you'll notice on the right hand side we've got 3 layers. We've got our background layer, we've got that green layer, and the purple layer. And I can turn off the purple layer. There's the green layer. All right, I've got this piece I want to also drag in. So we've got more to play with and work with. I find you almost can't have too much to play with. Edit, transform, scale, make it a little bit smaller. Shift, constrain, and that looks good to me. I'm gonna accept that. And what else do I have? Oh yeah, that one, cool. Unlock it, drag it over, drop it. Edit, transform, scale, and shrink it down just a bit. Okay, so we're good. Now, we can do lots of fun things. We can blend these modes, we can take pieces, we can make selections, we can play with transparency. So right now I've got this layer on the top. I think I'm going to turn it off from now and just work with these lower layers. I think I'm going to start with this purple layer. I really liked it. I'm going to try to blend it with the below layer. And underneath this panel here are a whole bunch of selections. The first cluster is things that will darken dark pixels. The next selection will lighten light pixels. And this section here plays with contrast. So let's just give you an idea of what that looks like. There you've got the darken effect. And I'm going to undo these so that you can see them one by one. We'll just jump through and maybe do a color burn, show you what that looks like. Can't really see much of the layer beneath. Now I have got my opacity set at 67%. That was left from the last time I was playing with this program. So we can adjust it, you know, just to show what it would look like with less or more of the effect. But I'm kind of wanting to undo that. And I'm going to have to do 2 steps backward now because I played with the opacity. All right, let's try, I might have to go 1 step further back. And you can also always go back to your history in your Windows panel, and that will allow you to go backwards in your steps, because sometimes, you know, you can play around and get pretty deep into it. All right, so now we're back to showing that purple layer with no blend modes on. Let's try exclusion. Ew. Maybe. Might go with that. Let's add this layer on top and let's give it, well, let's try color dodge. Oops, I'm not on the right layer. So I've got to turn that off and see if I did anything there. I did affect that layer, so edit, step backward. There you go. Had to restore that because I accidentally made a mistake. All right, so now I'm on this layer. You want to make sure you have that layer selected so you're not editing other layers like I did. So vivid light. Ooh, that one's really, Let's step backward. Let's try luminosity. Nah, don't like that. And let's try lighten. I don't really like that one either. Let's try multiply. Nope, too dark. Well, I'll tell you what we might want to do with this is go ahead and modify it with the effect applied. So we can move this layer around by dragging it, or we can modify it by masking it. So I'm going up here to the Marquee Tool, and this will give me, all of these will enable me to make selections on the layer. So I've got this elliptical marquee. It's going to give me some circles. And if I wanted to make a perfect circle, I would hold down the Shift key and I would get circles. I wanted to make ovals. I could just drag it like that. Now holding the shift key will add to it. If I let go of the shift key, it's like a do-over. And you can see the little plus sign that appears on my handle there. So say I wanted to do something maybe kind of random, some ovals. All right, now I can make a selection by doing edit. I can do copy merged. And what that did is it copied everything inside those dancing ants. I could have done it the opposite way. I could have gone select inverse, and then I would have left holes. Let's try that. All right. So now edit, copy merged. I'm going to create a new layer by coming over here, and there's this little button down here that looks like a sticky note. Boom. I'm adding another layer. And I'm adding it on top of my current layer. And I'm going to go edit, paste. Now, the reason you don't see it is because I had that layer selected. So they matched. So they just all blended together. But now you're seeing the holes, which is what I was thinking I was going to like. I'm not so sure that I do. But you do have those holes to play with. Maybe I will try stretching those. So I'm going to take this layer that's active now, edit, transform, and I'm going to try distorting them. And I can kind of just squeeze them around with that tool. Another tool I can play with, oh, look at that. It gives me some nice dimension. Kind of like that, actually. Might end up going with that. Yeah. Yeah. Gives me a sense of motion, maybe. Yeah, I kind of like that. Yeah, kind of liking that. Maybe make it a little bit bigger. So whenever I feel like it's right, I'm just going to accept the design there. By hitting that checkbox. And I can still move it around, but it stops the distortion from happening. And I think what might be cool would be to duplicate this. So I'm going to make sure this layer is selected. I'm going to right click, duplicate layer. Okay, so now I've got two of those to play with, and they're stacked on top of each other, which is kind of neat. I was thinking I would rotate it, but now I'm thinking I might like this better. All right, that's pretty good. I'm going to do another one, actually. Right click, duplicate layer. All right, now I've got yet another copy. And I'm going to flip this one. Edit, transform, flip, horizontal. And that's going to give me circles in the opposite direction. That's not exactly what I wanted. Edit, transform. I'm going to rotate it so that it goes around that way. And that way I can maybe have it come out at an angle like that, which could be pretty cool. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I like that right there. Just kind of line it up. And if any time you want to line things up, you can nudge them with your arrow keys over here. All right, so that's kind of interesting to me. I'm going to accept that. Okay, so here's where we are with this image, and I think it needs something else. I think it needs an element, and I have a library where I've saved some elements, Windows, Libraries. This library is called My Favorite Marks, but I want to show you how I did this and how you can create your very own favorite marks. So I'm going to go File, New, just to open up another Workspace. Boy, I certainly made that one small. Maybe I should make it bigger. Let's make it 400 by 400, just to have a little square space to work in. and zoom in a little bit, Control plus. I'm going to create a mark like I created these marks, starting with a type element. I'm going to pick a letter I like. I like to work a lot with V's. Yeah, V's work pretty good. I might do actually a couple V's, put them together. So I'm going to put them in separate so I can move them around, create 2 text boxes, type another V. So I'm good with that. And I can move those around. I'm going to transform one of them because I want one of them to be larger to kind of create more of an interesting mark. I'm going to transform, rotate it, give it some flow. Oh yeah, that's what I want right there. All right, I think I'll create another V because I've heard that you should do things in odd numbers like 3s or 5s. And I learned that from pattern design class. So edit, transform. This one, I think I'm going to skew this one a little bit so that it looks like it's on a different plane almost. And then I still also want it to be a little bit larger. So transform scale. There we go. All right. I want to rotate it. Edit, transform, rotate. Just to make sure we get a nice flow. Okay, great. Now I can still modify these further. My panels are kind of getting messy over here. I want you to be able to see what I'm doing. Each of these are still type elements on their own layer. Now I can rasterize these type layers to change them from type to an art object. So it will turn this type element into pixels. So type, rasterize type layer. And now it's just like an art object. And what I want to do with it is image, edit, transform. And in the same panel right above, you're going to see something called Puppet Warp. And this is super fun. I've got this layer selected only. That's why you only see one of them come up in this webbing here. And you've got this little thumbtack. And so that's going to be like a pinpoint, like, okay, I'm going to maybe anchor it right there. And now I can stretch and modify my object. Oh yeah, I kind of really like that. Drag it around. Okay, and now I'm going to go back to this guy here. I'm going to puppet warp him too. But again, now this time I forgot to rasterize my layer, but this Adobe gives me a little pop-up. Must be rasterized before it can do the puppet warp. And then it applies that. And let's anchor it. Let's anchor it there this time. That way I can kind of stretch it from that point and show you how that works. Ah, I like that. That's good. And then I've got this V right. Let's see, which one am I working on? I can always turn on my eyeball if I get lost. Okay, so down here, and you'll see that's still the T. So I've got to rasterize that type layer. And then edit puppet warp, and let's put an anchor down. Oh, I've got 2 anchors down now, and so then I can just bend the one limb, and that's pretty fun too. And I can still go back and click and drag and move my anchor points as well. So whole lot of flexibility there with this. All right, I'm liking that really well. So now I've got my 3 objects, and I could save any one of these layers individually and create a graphic, or I can group them together. I kind of like to do it individually. So that way you have a lot of flexibility when you're putting them in. So now I've just got the one layer selected, and you can see it's this V right here. I've got my libraries panel open, Windows, libraries, if yours is not open. And then this little icon here is add graphic. And what that's going to do is it's going to store this element forever or until I delete it in my library. I'm going to go down and store the next layer individually, which will give me the other V and that one as well. So now when we go back to our art layer, and I still have the same library open, look, I've got all these fun elements. We can literally just drag and drop elements onto the screen. Now I want to transform this, so I'm going to again hit my shift button so that I constrain the proportions as I scale it, make it nice and large so you can see it, and then I'm going to accept that by checking the button at the top, the check mark. Now as I see this V, it's really dark and it blends too much into the background. So what I'd like to do is modify it, give it a little glow around the edges. So I want you to look over onto the bottom right hand corner where we can add masks and layers. So here's the effects button, and that will allow us to do things like an inner glow, for example. Whoa, look at that. I think what you're seeing there is that the glow is taking up the entire letter because of the size of it. So if we play with these adjustments here, we can also play with the blend modes just like we did with the layers panel. Let's see, let's try pin light. That's kind of neat. You know, I don't think I want an inner glow. I think I'd rather have an outer glow. So let me turn my inner glow off. And now I'm going to my outer glow layer. And now I can adjust everything. Now that's in the vivid light mode, which is why you're not really seeing anything, because the vivid light mode reacts differently. It reacts like a contrast layer. So see it there? Let's change that to a lighten mode. All right, and then we'll take the size of that back down. And that's more what I was going for. Playing with some of these sliders here. Opacity, make it, instead of precise, let's make it softer and make it, there we go. That's really what I'm looking for, just kind of a glowing outline, and we'll hit OK. All right, now what I want to do is have some more V's that also stand out from the background. So I could go get the other shape V's that we created and drag them on. And once again, make them larger. Okay, that kind of looks good. I kind of like them to look like they're flying around. And I want those same effects to be applied to that V. So I can literally drag those effects up there. But now I took them away from down there. So add them back. I could go to my effects layer and go, that was an outer glow. And it'll remember your last settings. So it's going to apply the exact same, where you left your sliders is where they'll be. So that worked out pretty well. Okay, so we're good with that. And I wanted to add one more V. I kind of like to do things in odd numbers. That's what I learned in pattern design class, is that you do things in 3s and 5s and 7s. Okay, and then we'll once again add our effects and add our outer glow. Okay, very good. All right, so I'm kind of liking it. It seems like it has a lot of motion, and that's what I like in my work. I can move some of the V's around. I just have to remember to select the layer that I want to play with. And then I would like to rotate that one, edit, transform, rotate. And ta-da, looks pretty good. All right, so one more thing I'm going to show you before we call this one done is I'm going to add my signature to this piece. And I have that saved in a separate library called text. And there it is. And I'm just going to drag it on and adjust the scale, shift, and size that way down. And there you have it. Accept that. Well, I hope you had fun, and we can we can adjust this infinitely, and that's what's really exciting and fun about Photoshop is you almost can't mess up because you can always undo and redo. So hope you enjoyed today's lesson.